Nyangena Brian is my name. Prefer going by Nya. My journey in entrepreneurship started around 2016. I had been 3 years into the job market. I realized very quickly I don't do very well in authority or structure. I needed to try out new ideas, and I had a number of ideas that I wanted to try. My first foray into entrepreneurship began with me wanting to start a hedge fund. I had been a trader for 3 years, 4 years, I think, 3-4 years. I was trading commodities market in the US exchange, but they had set up their first African office. So I did that for 3 years. I felt like they were constricting me in terms of what I could manage to do in terms of trading. And the idea came to mind. I think I was 25 back then. I was like, if I start my own business, I can become a millionaire quite fast. Back then, my incentives were very misaligned. So that's when I decided to quit my job, start a business. Suffice to say that journey did not start out really well. So I did my first business. I took capital from a couple of my friends. Funny enough, my business partner, Evans, as well, was my first investor. I lost his money in 2.5 months. He then gave me an extra amount of money, coupled with another friend of mine. And the friend of mine actually took a loan because that's how much he trusted in my idea. I lost that in 2 weeks. Then I quickly realized that there's not so much I know about starting a business, and my incentive to become rich was not helping me build a very good foundation on business. That was the first time I had failed in something I had done and become passionate about. So there was a whole year of worrying about myself and feeling sorry. But then I decided to start over again. Education was always something that came very easy to me, so I decided to go start my master's in mathematical finance at Strathmore. That was also a way for me to decompress from that and lick my wounds from my failure. It took me a very long time before I got to a point where I wanted to start a business again, but that was towards the end of 2019. I had graduated, and God had blessed me with twins. And I realized that for me to be able to provide for my kids the way I would have wanted them to be, it would have needed me to break out of my comfort zone yet again. So around that time, I found Evans, because he had also gone into his own foray of business, and I'm sure he will tell you a story about it. I found him because he was the only friend who I knew who had started a business. And as far as I was aware, he was doing really well. Kumbe, he had also failed and hid himself on the other side. So when I met him again, I remember telling him, I think it's time we do a business. We had always said we would do a business together. 2019 is the time we started thinking around what could we possibly do. In 2019, because I used to be a trader, I had gotten so interested in blockchain, Bitcoin specifically, actually. But Bitcoin is done with a technology called blockchain, and I had been very interested in understanding how that technology works. So around that time, I asked Evans. I was doing that and machine learning because of my master's and what I was teaching in Strathmore. I was doing a lot of machine learning, AI, teaching students. So we were saying we would start a business around those 2 areas. COVID came. It found us with our first idea, which was to find analytics for supermarkets and marketing, where you do data-driven insights to support supermarkets to know how to stock, how to give loyalty programs, etc. COVID came, everyone went home. We were working from home. So that business model didn't quite work out as we had imagined. But during that time, the advantage was that tech was growing. So we took that time to start reading. I then ended up finding someone who was in the energy sector, who was interested in blockchain. We then started having conversations around the same. And that ended up spinning out to be an assignment for us, the first assignment now under base that was doing things on how blockchain can be applied in the energy sector. Suffice to say, when I got into the energy sector, I didn't even know the difference between a kilowatt and a kilowatt hour. What is a mini grid, microgrid? It was a whole new space. But one thing that you'll come realize even in our story, we like pushing the boundaries. We like trying new things. Personally, I find an interest in problem solving. I like taking the road less traveled. And for us, that not many people were doing that kind of connection between blockchain and energy. So we had 3 work streams: raising financing for energy projects using blockchain, enhancing carbon credits markets through carbon markets, through blockchain, and driving up demand through Bitcoin mining. That second work stream on how you enhance transparency on carbon markets through blockchain is what gave birth to Verst Carbon. Because when we were doing that, I realized when we were giving the client suggestions, there was not a lot of African players who were getting into the space. And it really pissed me off. I was like, it seems like a very interesting topic, but why are we not getting into it? I remember telling Evans, this is going to be a business. So that January, we decided we were going to start hiring. We will run both companies in parallel. Again, an interesting thing to say, we've been bootstrapped, so we never raised capital. During that first few months, I tried raising capital for the idea, but the market was very new. No one was willing to invest in that. So our idea was that we will use the work we are doing in Base to finance. So, because we're the ones who are working in Base. So everyone who was working there, you will work for so that you get a salary. Then you can work for free in Verst, because we are not even registered the company. One of the challenges that I found that the ecosystem had was there's not a lot of African representation, where people are representing the voice of what's happening on the ground. Because even the things I was reading online, and back then AI was not a thing, there were certain contexts that were missing, certain procedures that would not have normally worked here, number one. Number two, the opportunity for what, the prospect that we would, in our own way, contribute to the climate discussion became very important for us. There's this concept of blue and red ocean. Carbon markets back then was a blue ocean. There were not a lot of players. The red ocean has a lot of sharks. This was a very new market, so it lent itself really well to us coming and putting our footprint to it. And that opened up a gap for us. Third, I felt, especially because I was trying to fundraise, and guys were discounting us because we had not yet had a track record. We did not fit the normal mold of an entrepreneur. We were dreaming big, and our ideas seemed to be not the same. We were trying to tackle so many things at the same time, and people were telling us, you can't do so many things. If there's one thing that motivates me, is being told that I can't do something. So that was a third thing where I was like, you know what, we can do it by ourselves. So with that, it also felt like an opportunity to show other young entrepreneurs who are in the field that you can actually build something with a true hustler culture, like we were being told. Boots on the ground, bootstrapping every single thing. And then as we continued building, those are the opportunities we ended up having. When we got into the ecosystem, the problems became more real. I came to realize that there's no capacity in the continent for the carbon markets, and it was a very important conversation. There was financial flows into the continent was almost non-existent because of the perceived risks of operating within the continent. Majority of the players we were talking with, who we assumed would have carbon projects ready, and our idea of Verst Carbon back then was to connect buyers and sellers. We realized there were no sellers, and back then the market was in a downturn, more globally for what our ecosystem can do. So it became a very big challenge back then, and we felt we can actually make a dent to support these project developers to be quote bankable. I don't like that word, but it's a simpler way of being able to explain it, for them to be able to then attract the financing that it was needed. So that then got us very motivated. And the further we got into the ecosystem, the more problems we realized. And I'll give a very good example. We got into carbon project development. None of us had done carbon project development. We were a tech-first company, but we realized that this tech cannot serve anyone if there are no players who will bring projects to the platform, which then means you have to go a step lower to support those players to grow. When you get there, you realize there are sectors. There is a Folu, there is clean cooking, there is XYZ. We picked clean cooking. When you go into clean cooking, the issue of integrity in the ecosystem was very much mad. So people were very much pushing for MRV, monitoring, reporting, and verification systems. No one was doing that. So we could have simply waited for the market to build a solution so that we then interface with our ecosystem. But as you can see with that story, at every one point when you're going a step lower, we are realizing people are not doing it. So it's either you wait for other people to come and do it, or you do it yourself. And the further we kept going, the further we realized there's another problem. I cannot wait for another person to come in, so I have to do it. So that's how we eventually kept finding different problems that then ended up shifting to create the pillars that we are based upon right now. Verst had gotten to a point where it needed to have its own Chinese wall. And that's how we separated Base and Verst. And we decided then that Evans will run Base and I will run Verst. And we will have sister companies, and then that's the journey, man.